Sell.
To sell.
Yeah! Hey everyone, welcome back to Self to Sell. This is our part 2 with Will. My name is Heem, this is Nick, and I just said this is Will. So, this week we're actually going to be talking about blockchain in medicine. So Will, if you want to give us a quick introduction.
Sure, absolutely. Myself or blockchain?
I'll do a little
bit of both.
Okay.
If you want to learn more about Will, go back and check out episode 12, which was posted, 2 weeks ago?
Yeah.
And go check that out. That talks about his journey into MD PhD, where he's from, how he got interested, his stint in Germany. It's a really interesting episode. So go back and watch that and then come back to this one. But yeah, just a real brief introduction, but then please explain blockchain because I don't even know what a blockchain
Cool.
is.
Okay, yeah. So my name's Will Wulftange. I'm an MD PhD student now in my 5th year of the program here at Case Western Reserve University. And so blockchain is not something I'm doing as part of my program, but it's something I'm interested in my personal life. And so, when people hear blockchain, they think of Bitcoin and maybe Ethereum, and largely the outer perspective of it is speculative financial markets, which is useful. That's what it originally was developed for. But it's also being applied in science and medicine. And so that is really interesting to me. And I kind of got deeper into that through an organization called MD Plus. And so basically it's this organization, it's a nonprofit that kind of encourages MDs and physicians or anyone kind of in medicine to explore alternative career paths. So that can be venture capital, consulting, biotech, anything like that. And they also had a blockchain portion. And I was really interested in that, and I took on a leadership role in that community. And so I've kind of learned the landscape of how blockchain is being applied in these fields. And I think this is really, I'm a zealot for it, but I really think that this is the future because of some of the principles of the technology behind it. And so let's go blockchain. So what is a blockchain? Okay, so a blockchain is basically you have this list of items. And so currently what it is it's, person A transferred funds to person B. And you basically create a list of this, and then once you have a block, so a set list of these transactions or action items, that gets represented by a number or a hash, and then that's your block, and then you start the new block, and the new block references the previous number, like a hash, and then continues on with those lists, and so eventually, and so on and so forth. So each block is just a list of items or transactions or data, and they constantly refer to the previous one. So that's the chain part of it.
Okay.
And so that's really cool. It started out in financial markets and applications, just a way of kind of keeping track of transactions without having to have the whole entire list. And that was great, but now people are kind of starting to think, well, how can this be applied in other ways? So now you have technologies like Ethereum is the number 2 cryptocurrency. And what that does is that actually is more instead of keeping track of transactions, it also can have applications in those blocks. So the data you store in those blocks can be actual applications that you can interact with. And so now you go from a way of ledger keeping to decentralized computing. So this is gonna get I have a whole presentation. I gave this presentation to my lab, and I have a bunch of emojis. I can send it to you guys. You might throw it up on the screen or something. But
We would love that.
But
we really would.
It's kind of complicated to explain just with words. I'm not doing a super great job at it, but essentially what you get is you get this decentralized network, and that's a key word, decentralized.
Okay.
Because most technology companies are very centralized. So you interact with Facebook, and they own everything. You can kind of create your own thing, and this would be Web 2.0. You create your own profile, you have a login,
Right.
but they own all the data.
Right.
And so the whole idea of Web 3 and blockchain in general is to kind of redistribute some of this ownership from these centralized institutions to the individual users. So that's the guiding principle for this whole field, which is really cool.
Yeah.
So how could this be applied in medicine? So one of the more common examples you'll hear about is patient data. So when you go to a hospital, you generate a lot of data. They take lab values, just you being there, any kind of symptoms, all your interactions are recorded, and that's patient data, and that has a lot of value.
Mm-hmm.
Not an individual person necessarily, but when you have a whole patient population about data and outcomes, this is valuable. And so pharmaceutical companies would want this, any kind of healthcare company could want this data. And so hospitals can then sell that data, de-identified of course, to these companies, and they get, they make money selling your data the same way that Facebook might sell your data to like analytical or advertising companies and that sort of thing.
Is that legal though?
Crazy.
For in the medical market?
Well, so I don't know the exact legality of it. I'm sure you probably sign waivers, but like I know like the hospitals are not going to be doing illegal things, but like certainly they can sell data, like your data can be used. I'm sure you have to sign a consent form, but it's probably like a terms of service type thing where it's like, if you want to use our app, you have to agree to the terms of service. So like if you're in the hospital, you're like agreeing to the terms of service that they can like. But to be fair, I don't know the like nitty gritty of the legalities, but that's like the general concept.
I think for me, the thing about blockchain I like the best is like the underlying contracts. This whole new thing about what is it? Instead of using the difference between Bitcoin versus something else that uses what is it called?
Smart contracts?
Smart contracts. Yeah.
So that's kind of what I was describing with Ethereum, with like the data or the applications within the blockchain. Those are called smart contracts.
Yeah.
And so you can interact with them and like produce, functions that are like very highly defined. Like it's kind of like the word for it is trustless. And that kind of sounds a little scary, like you don't have trust, but it just means you don't need to have trust because it's a program that's set on the blockchain. It's going to do exactly as the code is defined. So like you don't have to trust some central party to do what they say they're going to do. It's an application. It's going to do whatever the code says. Right. And so that's really cool. And so kind of getting back to a medical application of it. So imagine you were a patient and like, if people are making money off your health records and that kind of thing, you're not seeing any of that profit. Like if someone sells, or maybe a better example would be like 23andMe, where like when they take your genome and they're selling that data to other companies, like, and like that's your genome and you're not making money off of that. You pay them to make money off of it actually, which is really freaky in my mind. But like, so how could blockchain change something like that? Well, the idea would be, so say you had a genome as like some sort of, now let's get into, before we go too much, kind of like going on a little tangent. Okay, you guys have heard of NFTs, right?
Yes.
Non-fungible tokens.
Yeah.
Right now, your response is my response. It's like those things are, like NFTs as they are now, so what an NFT is it's basically just a file, a digital file, and it's a way to establish ownership over a digital file. Now, the way that manifests now is through stupid images and like graphical art, and like it's a total bubble. It's like this is not what NFTs are going to be 10 years in the future. At least I hope not. It's a horrible, stupid community. It's like pseudo art collectors and people kind of capitalizing on this like craze. But establishing digital ownership is actually really cool. And so let's just say, and having an NFT is like establishing digital ownership over something. So what if that digital ownership was over your genome? What if your genome was in a file, in an NFT file, and you had ownership over it? Basically, say you gave that, or say you had 23andMe had access to you gave them permission to have access to your genome in a digital file, and say they wanted to sell all of that. Well, you could say, you having ownership over that would be really important because you could say, yes, you can sell that, or no, you can sell that. And if you were to say, like, yes, you can sell that, but I want a percentage of the cut because this is my data.
Right.
So it's basically, that's kind of how people are thinking about it, is like it's giving patients or end users ownership over this digital information that's being generated off of them.
Yeah, I watch a stupid amount of YouTube, and I get the dumbest ads. And I saw this one ad that really made me kind of like scoff at it.
Okay.
But it was this dude, he's like, it's your classic entrepreneur YouTube ad, like, quit your job, buy a computer.
Drop ship.
I work from Central Park every day and look at the place that I got fired from. It's like, that's stupid. But this guy was talking about digital real estate. And owning websites that people you can rent out to people to put their stuff on. Okay. And you kind of run almost like you hire an SEO, but you let these people run it and you put their stuff out there. And I was like, that's actually actually a really cool concept of owning 10 websites that are built to just get everything out there as much as you can, and having people just pay you to put their stuff on there. I was like, that sounds really cool. So when you talk about owning my genome and selling it, I think that makes a lot more sense to me now that I've made that connection, because I think NFTs are like the dumbest thing.
Yeah, they are.
They're like
in their current state, it's so dumb. Like, it's like, oh my God.
I'm glad
it's cringy.
I'm glad Jimmy Fallon lost
Yeah.
What, he lost probably 500,000, I mean,
Yeah.
even more on
Yeah.
that stupid monkey.
That
Bored Ape.
that
The Bored
Yeah, the
that,
Bored Ape.
that company, Yuga Labs, is like that's so antithetical to blockchain and cryptocurrency. Basically, what it is like, okay, we've created this like very exclusive pay-to-play system where it's like, oh, come buy these like digital items for, at their peak it was like hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
Which is like, so it's like a status symbol. And then what they would do is they'd be like, okay, now if you own this, you can come join our club and we're gonna like airdrop you
That's what I
other
was
little
gonna say.
coins and stuff. And it's like, this is not crypto. It's not to create this exclusive community of like wealthy people, like haves and have not. It's like
Right.
crypto is very much like, the whole idea was that it's like decentralized, and that it's like, as the individual user, you can partake based on your like proportional ownership. So it's, yeah.
And what if I just took a screenshot?
Yeah, well, that's, I mean,
Seriously.
well, the counter argument to that is like, okay, that's like going into what, the Louvre, is that where the Mona Lisa is?
Yeah,
and
taking
taking
a
a
picture
picture
of
of
the
it.
Mona
And it's like, okay, like we can recognize one is real. Like there's inherent value in knowing that it's from a specific
Right.
origin. But
Yeah, but
that
at the same time, like,
Do you guys know Logan Paul?
Sure.
oh yeah, you got
So-
the Pokemon card, right?
No, not only that. Okay, so he did a bunch with NFTs, and like the whole
okay.
exclusivity thing about NFTs.
Yeah.
Personally, I like that about NFTs, the whole smart contract thing.
Mm-hmm.
For example, if you bought my NFT, you could come to one of my parties I throw.
Yeah.
It's like your automatic ticket in,
Right.
or like you get first exclusivity to my merch, or
Yeah.
like you get dibs on my concert tickets or something.
Sure.
But if I let's say if I was a doctor, I own my own practice, and if I sold NFTs,
Mm-hmm.
I would give people priority to like free prescription refills, or like give them masks for home,
Mm-hmm.
or like free visits, or like
Dude, I feel like that.
consulting for like
I feel like that
or
when you get
discounts
into the
for medical
medical field,
devices.
but I feel like when it gets into the medical field, it gets super hairy because doctors aren't paid by the patient, from what I understand. They're basically paid by hospitals and insurance companies, right? Like you go and get an $80,000 bill because you had like an appendectomy or something, right? And you're not going to pay $80,000. You're going to pay your insurance company over a long period of time. But that surgeon gets paid the $25,000 that it took to go in and take it out. You didn't pay him; the insurance company paid you. So I feel like that might be like a little bit of like a bottleneck when we talk about. And I could be totally wrong.
Who knows?
I
dude?
don't know.
What if insurance
I
companies?
don't know.
What if insurance companies started selling NFTs, like Blue Cross
But
Blue
would
Shield? You got an NFT from them, and they give you like discounts and things
But
down the road.
wouldn't that be the same thing as just like buying like a subscription, basically? Like one time, like you're like, let's say you're Humana. I go to you. I am a subscriber to Humana. I pay my health insurance every month or every year, and I have my deductible and everything. And they're like, we'll give you. I don't know if I'm stupid. I don't know if a higher or lower deductible is, but we'll give you a better deductible if you buy a little file that has our logo on it, and you can prove that whenever you go through one of our portals that you have it. You're with us. You bought that subscription. You bought our NFT. I mean, everybody would do it. Like, I don't know how much it would cost, but then all of a sudden but I feel like the point of medicine is, why are we trying to make medicine more exclusive? Right? I like the 23andMe idea. I like the 23andMe.
Yeah.
This is my DNA. If you're going to sell it to companies for more
At least give me
genomic
a
research,
cut.
give me a cut.
Yeah,
Right.
Give me like 0.00001% because they're going to make billions of dollars off of it. Give me $100 for it.
Well,
right?
And to like the insurance purpose, like if an insurance company is selling me an NFT, it's like why do I even need this?
Right,
Like this is a
right.
money grab. Like
Yeah.
why is this digital ownership over something you're like, that doesn't make sense in my mind. Like why would I care to have digital ownership over your own product? Like
Right.
just sell me the insurance. Like I feel like this is just anyways, but like
I just don't. I think we have to make sure that when we take blockchain into medicine, and when people start thinking of blockchain as NFT, Bitcoin, Ethereum, right? We can't have people coming into medicine because we've worked. The medical field has worked really hard to make it available to people and kind of affordable.
Yeah.
And I say kind of in quotation marks. It's still really expensive.
Absolutely.
So I just think it would be really wrong for someone to come in and make medicine even more exclusive, because it's honestly already super exclusive.
Right.
It really is. I mean, I don't even.
But what if that doctor was goodwilled and they took those profits donated it to nonprofits and like created new technologies. You know, it's
But
like
like what? Or if like Humana was like, we're gonna sell these NFTs or something,
reallocate the money.
and we're gonna reallocate the money and spread evenly across 5 different cancer researches,
That's good.
or a region, and then I think we'd be talking a little bit, more serious about it. But I think that I think the 23andMe example is way more, and hospitals giving away my declassified data,
Right.
for studies. I think that's perfectly fine. I think we should move towards that. I think that it will help science, and it will also help the patient, right? But let's not make it any more exclusive than it has to be.
Right. It's more just like, I think the function of it is like, in talking about like the NFTs and redistributing to like cancer research or something like that, it's like, is an NFT really, like, does that solve a problem? Couldn't they just do that, like cut out the NFT step and just donate that money? So it's like, it's more like, how do you give, like, I think the function it serves is like to establish ownership back to the patient.
Well, I think it goes kind of 2 ways, because like if I came to you and you're like, hey, do you want to donate $100 to this research fund? And you'd be like, maybe, and you might give the money. But if I came up to you and I was like, hey, if you donate $100 to this research fund, I'm gonna give you
an NFT.
I'm gonna give you free Cleveland Guardian tickets against the Red Sox or whoever comes in.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, dude, $100 for like a good baseball game. Like, I'll take that. It's like $100 for something in return.
Yeah.
And humans have always been transactional beings.
Sure.
We've always, if I'm giving you something, 99% of the time, I expect something in return. I go to the grocery store, I give you $5. I expect my oranges.
Right.
I expect my bread.
Yeah.
Right. If I go to a trading card place and I go and I say, hey, I want to trade you this card, they're gonna be like, okay, I can do this one. Right? You would never walk in and be like, dude, I'm just giving away all my expensive Pokemon cards or all my expensive baseball cards. I don't want them anymore.
Yeah.
Right? So I think that transaction could definitely benefit medicine. I do think it could, but I also think that there are smart people. There are smart people out there, and there are also very evil people out there.
A lot of grifters
who will go through and just take advantage of people.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
Do you know how many times like grandparents get scammed on through a phone call?
Yeah.
Like, could you imagine people who are going through medical bills,
right,
and just be like, oh, this person called me and like they need money,
and
they're gonna give me this, and it's like, oh
right.
my god.
Okay, so here's another use case. So So this one's
sorry.
I'm talking. You just went so far.
Why? I wanted to make sure. I just wanted to clarify.
Well,
my thoughts.
And there are a lot of grifters in this crypto space. I mean, that's evident by like the exchange FTX collapse. Like, you're realizing, it's all backroom deals here. Like, these centralized institutions are kind of casting a lot of doubt upon these decentralized technologies, which is a real shame. But okay, so another use case for science. Now, this is more broadly also applicable to medicine, but more science in general. So we've talked a little bit about today off camera about like publishing and scientific papers and stuff like that. And so I don't know so scientific publishing is like a really awful thing. Not for reasons because not because publishing, getting information out there is good, bad. That's unarguably good. But the problem is you have taxpayer dollars funding most of this like scientific research, I'd say, and then you find something cool, and in order to get it out there, you have to publish with these journals, which are very like centralized silos, and you have to pay them to publish the data, and then they put a paywall up. So it's so taxpayers in a lot of cases don't really get to see any of this information that they paid for. And now you have journals being like, oh, well, it's open access, but they just charge those fees they would have gotten from readers to the original researcher. It's like, okay, well, now we're just going to charge you $12,000 to publish here. And it's like, okay, it's expensive to publish in a journal, like minimum $2,000 up, some of the glamour journals like Nature, Science, Cell, probably upwards of like $10,000.
Really? That's
insane. Oh yeah. And it's highly there's so much there's a lot of politics behind it.
It's very exclusive, is what I've heard.
Right, and it's you could have a story that could belong in those journals, but if you didn't come from the right labs or know the right people, it might not get in. So it's not as democratized and as it might seem, or to the outside world. So so here's where another use case for blockchain comes in. is like, okay, so let's move away from these very centralized institutions, take this decentralization technology. And so one idea that I think there's a group called DeSci Labs or something. I went to a decentralized science blockchain.
Yeah,
So
that's super cool.
yeah, so they're trying to redo this like publishing paradigm. And so what you get when you publish is like you put a PDF up and that's it. So you get this like very kind of archaic.
Yeah.
There's no data there. You can't know raw data. You don't know what the reviewer said. You don't know like anything other than just what's presented in this PDF. And so what they're doing is they're trying to move publishing onto the blockchain. So that's one of the things is like the blockchain is a public entity. So anyone can look at the blockchain. So imagine if you put a paper up on the blockchain, everyone can see it. So that's cool. So it's kind of open access in that regard.
I like that.
And then also it's constantly evolving. So like you could initially put a publication up and you could also have it more of a dynamic object at that point. You could link like to file servers on like data. You could have like little comments and stuff. You could, and then as the project changes, future blocks in the blockchain could reflect those changes. So you could see what the project originally was and kind of how it's evolved.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
So like if somebody across the world, let's say 5 different labs, 2 in America, 1 in Mexico, 1 in Japan, okay?
Right.
Whatever, some in India, whatever.
Yeah.
And they're all working on the same cancer and they're all trying to do the same gene therapy for it. All these people across the world can input data on the same block and create new chains for it.
Right.
Based on everybody's research. So let's say 3 of the labs found out something, so they published that.
Right.
The other 2 labs can connect it to something else.
Totally, yeah.
And then evolve.
Right.
So it's just like you get to, because sometimes I'll read papers online, and like sometimes you have to look at like the links or like the citations to see where this initial research came from and stuff. So I feel like if you can have like a blockchain thing where you can get to see research evolve, I think that is awesome.
That would be really cool.
That's awesome.
And like point it to the actual raw data, or like it would just make things. It's just the current way of publishing is just so archaic and like really counterproductive to science in a lot of ways. Where it's like, now there is a careful balance because like in your example, like that highly collaborative, multiple people publishing together, that's great. But if I've worked on something for 10 years, I might feel the need that like, well, I don't want to collaborate this. Even if other people are also working on this, I want the credit for myself and that sort of thing. So, and then when it comes to like licensing and patenting, that opens a whole other thing.
I was going to say, like, I had 2 questions on it, like legally, patent-wise, licensing it out, like who, if we're collaborating, if it's totally public, how am I protected as the the writer? I guess by a date of publish and all that kind of stuff. Like that would be helpful. But also, who would be reviewing my paper?
Yeah.
Who how could we? A lot of papers out there right now are not real or at least replicable. Like you can't take them in your own lab and redo them. And science is supposed to be that way.
Right.
So. My question would be just how would we make sure and monitor that people aren't just throwing up fake papers,
right?
Like just fake stuff.
Yeah. So have you guys heard of the journal eLife by any chance?
I think I might have.
I have not.
Okay, so eLife it's a pretty good journal. I think it's like created by the Howard Hughes Medical Institute, which is a very like prestigious medical community or whatever. And so eLife recently is kind of moving towards this more open access thing where it's like. And they're trying in the same spirit of like making things more open access and clear, more transparency in the publication process. And so what they've done is it was a really good journal and it still is, but like what they're doing is they will no longer mark papers as accepted or rejected, which is like usually you submit a paper, maybe it goes out for review, but it will ultimately either be accepted or rejected from the journal. What they're going to do is you're going to submit the paper and they're just going to review it if it warrants review, and they'll put like the comments and all that, and then they'll just put it up. But they won't say whether it's accepted or rejected. Now, people are kind of like, is this good? Is this bad? And also, you said who are the reviewers? Like the reviewers are going to be anonymous, which I think is bad because you could just like, and does this really even help you? Because like, say you put a paper up and some reviewer is just a total jerk and just tears it to shreds.
Right.
And you can ultimately have that paper become very successful, but then that would always be on there. So going back to blockchain, ideally, if you had this project or this paper published, you would then link and have like the reviewers ideally not anonymous, because I think if you're willing to comment on a paper, you should like be able like if you have credibility and you want people to take your comment seriously, you should say who you are probably. Just so that you're like, this is horrible, and you're just like a competitor. Or
Right. If you're giving criticism, you got to be able to take it too.
Right. And so ideally on the blockchain, the whole idea is like you can attach more things to this story. So raw data, reviewer comments, edits, revisions, and it's all would be kind of visual, so people could kind of see what the flaws are, how those have been rectified, and kind of the evolution in all capacities, the data, all that stuff. Now this is a very idealistic thing, and but like. I think this is what people ultimately want to move towards.
I think it could be really cool. And if I publish a paper and someone say they're like, "Hey, I think your paper is really cool.
Yeah.
I want to reference it or something." You just be like, throw me like $3.
Yeah.
Right. Just throw me $5, and you can use it.
Right.
I think that'd be cool. And it's all about, like I said, like the exchange. And I think that these applications are. From coming into this podcast and not understanding what a blockchain is to now hearing how they can, I think that they sound really cool, and they can be applied, and not just stupid NFTs or crypto or any medicine. They can probably start being applied everywhere if they're not already.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So I think in the next 10, 20 years, we'll see blockchain technologies applied in a lot more fields, because again, the ethos of this whole space is taking power from centralized institutions, whether they're big tech companies, governments, publishing houses, and kind of giving that power back to the individual who's ultimately like contributing and feeding into these centralized institutions. And like, so that's the ethos. And I think a lot of fields outside of science, medicine, and finance suffer from these problems. You have these centralized institutions kind of like really like reaping all the benefits from like these users.
Why is Nature charging me $12,000 to get my paper published?
Dude,
like,
because
that's crazy.
It's a brand name. It's like
it is.
Why
it's
is
that's crazy to me.
It's totally a brand name thing. Like it's
and they say
that
glamour
journals.
And they say that it's accessible, right? It's accessible to people.
Sure.
If you search up nature stuff,
you got to find.
You get the abstract, and then you have to subscribe to Nature.
Right.
And it's like, well, that wasn't very. How inspiring is it that I have to go pay to learn more things?
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I think that's kind of backwards. I really, really do.
Yeah, there's one of the postdocs I work with. She's brilliant. She's actually an HHMI fellow, Marissa Scavuzzo. Her whole internal confliction right now is like, is she going to publish her work? Is she going to like kind of feed into the system in one of these like glamour journals? Because probably she could publish in one of those journals, or is she going to kind of be the rebel and publish in like, one of these kind of like anti like open access things? But then it's like, the cost is like, if you publish in one of these open access type things that is like lesser and it's more of like this kind of insurgent movement in the academic community, you're not going to get the recognition you would get if you publish in Nature. So it's like the balance of her like career is kind of like, is it career versus like your internal morals, or like I guess that not morals but like beliefs, I guess. Yeah. So
it's definitely going to take some change, some time to change.
Yeah, I think
to move over. Who knows? Hopefully, Nature's maybe working on something like that.
Yeah, that'd be great. I think that would be really great. But at the end of the day, I think a lot of I don't think anyone's going to elect to have.
It's too much of a money grab, right?
Yeah.
It's too much of a money grab.
It's hard to make a decision to let's make less money.
Yeah.
So So I don't know.
So, I guess this is my last question. So with being an MD PhD, interest in the blockchain.
Yeah.
Are you? Do you have any ideas of like creating one of these, or collaborating with maybe an IT group to maybe create one of these?
Yeah, so I've had a lot of discussions with people that are trying to do this patient health data thing, where it's like patients are more in control of their data and get to say where it goes and when it goes and if they make a profit from it. So I've talked to a lot of people in that regard. One of the largest things here, one of the biggest barriers to the implementation of these technologies is like regulatory stuff. So especially if you're dealing with patient data, people hear blockchain and publicly accessible, and it's like, whoa, like we don't necessarily want patient data. Now there are ways around it. You don't have to actually put the patient data on the blockchain. You can have like a hash that then references a secured file system.
Okay.
So you don't have to have like unencrypted patient data on the blockchain. There are security ways around that, but like getting lawmakers to adopt that and
Getting them to understand it.
understand it first of all is like a huge thing, and then like even Apple is recently like took the Coinbase. So Coinbase is like a huge exchange for cryptocurrency, and they have an app on the store. And Apple is like, well, we want all of the like gas fees. So when you send a transaction in Ethereum, it charges gas to make the whole thing run. And that's like, it just shows like that's so unreasonable. You can't charge the network. Like you can, like that's not outside of that's outside of Coinbase. So even these huge tech giants don't really understand the technology very well. So getting lawmakers and then unrooting electronic health record companies like Epic and all these things, so like undo them.
They're terrible too.
Yeah. So you have to. Someone's gonna have to develop a product that makes it so much easier for the end user. That's got to be what happens. And so it's going to take a while. I think it's going to be probably a decade at least. And I hope to participate. I don't know what in what capacity.
A decade moves fast, man.
Yeah.
Look, you're 5 years.
Oh, I'm halfway through a decade, right?
There you go. But no, I think that applying technology to all medicines and all different types of ways is. I mean, everybody's like, technology's the future. But there's no way we can continue to move forward in medicine if we don't adopt some of these things from outside.
Absolutely.
And I think that this blockchain thing's awesome. So,
well,
we would love to talk more about that.
Yes, absolutely.
So we'll definitely have you back.
Okay.
We would love to have you back.
Cool, yeah,
so,
absolutely.
I'll talk to you after the podcast. But all right, you got anything else?
That's all.
Anything else you want to say for the second episode? Just
I feel like we've covered a lot, but we've really only kind of scratched the surface on a lot of these topics. So there's a lot more to a lot of these things. But
I'm gonna leave the descriptions for MD Plus. Make sure to check that out. They're an awesome group.
Yeah, and make sure to, if you've made it this far, you should definitely hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. We need to say it at the beginning of every episode, but. We just want to get right into it. So, all right. Well, thank you for tuning in to another episode of Sell to Sell. We want to thank Will for coming on. He was an amazing guest. So, that's him. I'm Nick. That's Will. And see you guys. Thanks for watching.
Thanks.
See ya.